Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Listen, I want to talk to you guys about something that could happen very quickly and something that's completely unexpected. And it could affect Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies. I've seen the potential for this for quite a while, and I know a lot of you guys have seen the potential for this for quite a while too. And it's going to take me a minute to kind of explain it to you what it is we're in a failing, worldwide, a failing fiat monetary system. And the reason why it's failing is the basic fundamentals of it is, it's kind of like putting the fox in charge of the hen house. There's a lot of corruption within the system. They've created the central banks, and they've created a banking system in which they can quite literally create money from nothing. And they've given this in charge, the keys to this. They've given it to basically a whole bunch of crooks. And this is a fiat Ponzi scheme that was started in 1914 with the Central Bank of the United States. Basically, the bankers, if you looked at them like they were the foxes, they've been put in charge of the hen house. And this means that they can create as many fiat monetary units as they wish, enriching themselves, making the middle class, the lower middle class, poorer and poorer. And what we see is a separation in society between the upper class, which is the 1%ers, and the lower to middle class, which is becoming poorer and poorer and being drained of everything that they have, basically, and being robbed through inflation. Well, this could create a situation because when Bitcoin was invented in 2009, it was basically standing alone by itself. It didn't represent an actual monetary system. What's happened is Bitcoin was created fundamentally on a core of the core of Bitcoin. What it runs on is freeware. It's like free, open source. It's open source software. And so what we saw was initially because this is open source and anybody on Earth can actually build a Bitcoin. They could even call it maybe something similar to Bitcoin, like maybe a coin like Bitcoin Plus or Bitcoin to infinity or whatever they want to call it. They can create a coin, you know. But certain players came along and created coins who've become quite famous now. Some of the earlier ones that created were offshoots of Bitcoin were coins like Litecoin. But slowly, as time has progressed, even though they've created thousands of different types of coins, certain ones have made it in the system and other ones have died and failed and passed away. But slowly what's been created as time has progressed is an alternative financial system that's running parallel to the present financial system. And let's call it the cryptographic financial system. And you know all the top coins out there in the cryptographic financial system that's running parallel to the main financial system. So what's the main financial system got? Well, the equivalent of Bitcoin in the main financial system is the dollar. That's the equivalent of Bitcoin. And in the main financial system, they have all these alternative currencies as well. They have like the Japanese yen, they have like the Great British pound, they have the euro, and I could go on and list them all, just like I could list the currencies within the alternative financial system, which is been created now, and it exists running parallel. And the currencies within it are like Bitcoin's the number one, you know, and then you got XRP, and you've got Litecoin, and you've got Bitcoin Plus, and all these different ones, you know. All these top coins, you know all the top coins on the list. Let's say the top 20. They're running parallel to the top 20 in the real financial system. So we've got two financial systems here. One is the mainstream financial system, which is totally corrupt and being totally abused. Then we have the alternative cryptographic financial system running parallel to this. It can't be corrupted. It can't be cheated on. There will only ever be 21 million bitcoins. Unlike the dollar, look at the dollar. They can make as many dollar units. They don't even have to ask us anymore. They don't ask us anymore. The Federal Reserve not long ago just went out and created like 180 billion new dollars and injected them into the system to try to save the system. This is just the beginning. Just the beginning, folks, of what I call the Great Print. They're going to have to do this. They're forced into this direction. And the reason why is the mainstream financial system with the dollars, yen, Great British pounds, and all of these other different currencies is starting to actually fail. Now, this is what leads to the unthinkable. But you have to go there and you have to analyze and you have to say, is it likely that the unthinkable could actually happen? And I'm going to tell you what the unthinkable is that the mainstream financial system, the financial system we've all grown up with the Great British Pound and the dollar and all of these other fiat currencies, suddenly goes into collapse. The central banks decide to try to save it by creating more monetary units, and it starts to go into a profoundly high inflation. The unthinkable is at that moment, people start to transition over into a secondary financial system that's already been created, which is the cryptographic financial system, Bitcoin and its ally of coins. And the reason why they would make this transfer is because they see the cryptographic currencies going up very slowly, rising in value, and rising in their purchasing power, while they see on the other side of this, the regular financial system, slowly sinking like the Titanic. There comes a point, you know, if people were completely blissfully unaware and they're standing on the deck of the Titanic and they're having a party and everything else, and they're playing fiddle music and everything else, and they're not aware that the ship is actually sinking, all of a sudden there comes a point where the ship starts to list and they all become aware at the same time that the ship is actually sinking. They're not going to go down with the ship. What they're going to do, and this is the same way with our regular financial system, they're not going to go down with that ship. They're going to jump ship, and they're going to try to find something to cling to. Well, we have the cryptographic financial system beginning to get to a position now where it's accepted in the world as having real value. Bitcoin is starting to become accepted within the financial system. It's not something that's strange and new and all these things like it's going to die and disappear and your money's going to lose your money if you invest it. No, it's starting to become accepted as a place to put your money. This is very dangerous. The reason why it's dangerous is as this other financial system is sinking, all of a sudden everybody on board that ship that's sinking is going to come clue into them at the same time. Wham! And they start to jump ship, and they're looking for something to cling to. They start clinging to the financial system that is being buoyed, the financial system that's built on a rock-solid foundation of fundamentals that can't be changed because they're embedded in the computer code. And those fundamentals are the same fundamentals that gold has. So I know a lot of gold bugs out there have been seeing this financial system sink, and they're thinking to themselves, hey, you know what? All these people are going to clue in at the same time, and they're all going to jump on gold. This is true. It might happen, because there's just so much going to come when this financial system starts to sink. So many people are going to try to look for alternative investments out of the dollar that it could carry gold and silver up to unbelievable heights. But gold and silver can't handle it all. All the gold in the world, all the silver in the world can't handle the entire fiat monetary sinking. I believe, my own personal opinion is, I believe the unthinkable could actually possibly happen. And I think we're already starting to actually witness it in this price rise from Bitcoin being not long ago. I mean, we're not talking ages ago. We're just talking a few years ago. A guy bought a pizza with like 7,000 Bitcoins. Bitcoins was on, back then, Bitcoins was on the same page with, you've ever seen these comic book stores, you know, and the guy in the comic book store, he's a little bit chubby or whatever, and he's a nerd, and he wears glasses or whatever with tape around the glasses, you know, and he sells Magic the Gathering playing cards, and he's into all this Dungeons and Dragons, and with all of his friends, and he sells comic books, and he goes to the comic book convention, you know, and these kind of guys, right? Bitcoin was in that category back then when the guy bought the pizza. You know what I mean? Back then it was like a novelty item that was like worth 25 cents or whatever, you know, per Bitcoin, you know, and you could go out and buy 100 of them for like $3 or something like that, you know, something ridiculous, or your friends might send you 100 Bitcoins just because you wrote something on Facebook or something they liked, you know, he send you like 100 Bitcoins. They weren't worth hardly anything. Look at where Bitcoins come from then till now. I mean, you guys right now, you probably got Bitcoin wallets. Can you imagine if somebody just sent you 100 Bitcoins tomorrow morning? I mean, back just a few years ago, you know, somebody sends you 100 Bitcoins, you know, you'd open your wallet up, 100 Bitcoins there, and you go and have your coffee and have your tea or whatever, and it's worth $3. Big deal. Now you get 100 Bitcoins, what would you do? You'd be jumping up and down. Your tea would be flying in the air. I won the lottery. I'm going to buy my new car, whatever, you know? That's the difference. What has driven that difference from then until now? Why has Bitcoin made that change? What's driven that change is right there. It's still there. What's driving it? And what's driving it is not going to go away. It's going to continue to drive it, except all the more so as what's driven it is the fact that this financial system is collapsing. And people need some place to go to get away from it, to secure. It's like Bitcoin has become the life raft on the ocean, and the people are now jumping off of the Titanic, the first few smart ones. Now there's a whole bunch of them, a whole crew of them up there on the deck of the Titanic right now, still having a party, not knowing that the ship is sinking. The first few ones are smart enough to know the ship is sinking. They've jumped overboard, and now they're swimming for the life rafts. Bitcoin is the life raft. And just those few have driven the Bitcoin price up to where it is right now at over $8,000 a piece. Now imagine what happens when the whole crew that's on that ship suddenly realizes, and they all scream because they realize that the ship is sinking. Imagine what could happen to the cryptocurrency. But we have another problem here, another huge problem. Is when that crisis comes and they all realize the ship is sinking and they make that transition over into hard assets, the problem arises is the crisis that could generate. Because we've been running with a monetary system. Everything is set up for dollars, yen, in Japan, yen, in China, the yuan, in Great Britain, the Great British Pound, and so on. Everything is set up. Everybody's used to being paid in Great British Pounds, and if you're in England. They're not used to being paid in Bitcoin. So if suddenly we make this crazy transition and it happens too fast, the disruption that could generate would be absolutely unimaginable. And this is why I consider Bitcoin to be a disruptive technology. But disruption or not, this is something that I don't think now it's able to be stopped. Because The Bitcoin train is coming down the mountain. It's slowly gaining speed. Okay, there's a few little contours on the mountain, a few little spots where the train has to actually go uphill a little bit before it goes downhill again. We're going through one of those periods right now, but overall, the train is going down the mountain and it's slowly, very slowly gaining speed. It's a runaway locomotive. And what's making that train gain speed is the death of the fiat monetary system. This is not going to stop. This is going to continue, and it's going to gain speed, and it's going to gain momentum. Bitcoin is going to very slowly gain price, and become more and more accepted as it gains price, as it gains popularity, as more and more people know about it. Its acceptance and adoption is going to spread. And there comes a certain point that's almost like when you got a black hole out there. They have something called the event horizon. It's an area around the black hole. If you cross that line of the event horizon, the black hole's going to suck you in. We are getting almost to that point, I think, with the cryptocurrencies and the failure of the regular monetary system. That at a certain point, the alternative monetary system, which is the cryptographic monetary system, at a certain point it's going to start to take on a life of its own. And it's going to start to actually increase the effect, the downward speed of the other monetary system, the regular fiat monetary system, as it grows larger. We could be getting closer and closer to that event horizon as we speak. And so these are very dangerous times that we're living in. And there's going to come a certain point, if I'm right about all of this, and this transference does take place from one monetary system to a new monetary system, a digital cryptographic blockchain monetary system. If that transition actually does happen, and it could happen extremely fast, if you're not on this end and you haven't bought into, even if you've only bought into a small amount, say you've bought 5 100ths or 5% of one Bitcoin, and you think, oh, I should have bought more, or I should have more, or whatever, and I only got 5% of one Bitcoin. You don't realize that if the whole world transfers over into the cryptographic monetary system, exactly how much that 5% might be worth. It might be the difference between back when the 7,000 Bitcoin would only buy a pizza and now. Okay? That difference might happen again. And if it does, then 5% might be more money than you need for your entire retirement. Quite literally, because if you break that 5% down into satoshis, it's 5 million satoshis. And if satoshis become worth the equivalent of what a dollar's worth now, you getting my point? But there's going to come a point, if this is going to happen, and it does happen in the next 5 years or so, there's going to come a point where it's too late, where you can't afford to buy 5% of a Bitcoin anymore. And this is when your friends and neighbors are all going to get scared and jump off the Titanic. When that happens, then you go to buy 5% of a Bitcoin. You can't afford that much anymore. You can only buy 1/100th of that much. Then you've missed the boat, because you've waited until all your friends and neighbors. We're still not there yet. Most people out there can afford 5% of a Bitcoin at this point in time. We're still not there to that point where you can't afford to even buy 5%. When we get to that point, it might happen suddenly. Maybe it'll happen a year and a half or 2 years from now, or not even that long. And you know how quick time goes by? You're listening to me talking right now. Do you know how quick a year goes by? You know, I would say, I go to the grocery store and stuff, and I see these people in the line, you know, and it's nothing for them. They don't even think about it. They order lottery tickets in front of me. I'm waiting to get my groceries. So we got a small town grocery store, you know. and they sell lottery tickets and cigarettes across, you know, and you can buy them right as you're going through the cash register. I know a lot of, but you know, it's more like, it's half like a convenience store and half like a grocery store at the same time, you know. Anyway, I see them in front of me, you know, and it's nothing for them to buy. No, nothing. They don't even think about it. They buy a few groceries too, you know, and they're $50. No problem. But they wouldn't think about buying $50 worth of Bitcoin. Well, you know, a $50 purchase worth of Bitcoin right now might turn into half of what in the future might turn into half of what you'd need for your entire retirement. I'm thinking that if the world makes this transition over into a digital monetary system, a digital blockchain monetary system, and they scrap the old monetary system completely because it goes down to zero, because it goes through a hyperinflation, I'm thinking that 1% of a Bitcoin might be all it takes to set you for life, if you're a careful spender. You know, if you don't go crazy or anything, because that's 1 million Satoshis. People don't see it that way. They think they have to own one whole Bitcoin before they have anything. You know, a Bitcoin breaks down into all these little pieces. Listen, thank you guys for listening. I know I'm starting to ramble on a little bit. Happy Thanksgiving to all the fellow Canadians out there. You know, and we'll catch you guys in the next video, and give me a thumbs up. Bye-bye, guys.